Welcome to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Simon, welcome back to the studio. How was the Great Outdoors, sir?
Great Outdoors were just that. They were great, Baxter.
They were. I've never heard of the Great Outdoors not being great. It would not be called the Great Outdoors,
That's right.
I guess.
But it really was great. Awesome weather.
What'd you do?
I think we had rain one day. A lot of fishing. The fishing was terrible, I will say that.
Really?
Yeah, the fishing was terrible. But other than that, I'd still rather be fishing than doing a lot of other stuff. Not catching and doing a lot of other stuff.
Fair enough. You did say, didn't one of your daughters catch
She did, yeah. She ended up catching a 14.5-inch bass.
Oh, my goodness.
1.5 pounds, which for those fishermen out there, they're probably, you're probably thinking, big whoop. But, for a 12-year-old,
absolutely,
that's a pretty fun fish to catch.
Absolutely. I think I caught a pike when I was like 11 or 12, and it wasn't that big. It was maybe about that big, but it was. As a kid, you were freaking out. Like,
Absolutely.
I caught a pike. I caught a big fish.
Yeah. The whole thing with fishing is, too, when you go with kids, it's not about the size of the fish, really. It's just that you're catching fish.
Exactly.
So a lot of little panfish keeps them excited.
Exactly.
Just
and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters, right. It's just like with soccer. When I'm coaching the little ones, I want them to learn stuff, but first and foremost, have some fun.
Absolutely. Because if you don't have fun, you're never going to enjoy what you do, and that's why we have fun with what we do.
That's right.
We enjoy it. So big thank you to all of you tuning in. We are live on Periscope, whatever it's called. Periscope, we are live on. You can definitely take a look inside the studio as Simon and I are talking. You can catch us on Fridays on Sports Radio America from 3 to 6 Eastern on Live 365 and tune in. And you can also listen to us on demand anytime by downloading our podcast on iTunes, on Spreaker.com, and on iHeartRadio.
That was a lot to say, and that's pretty awesome that you had that much to say.
It's a lot. It's a lot of good things to say. And then, Simon, they can find us on social media where?
On Facebook, we are Two Up Front, and on Twitter, we are at Two Up Front Soccer.
Yes, indeed. And we will be putting together a few new things in the upcoming weeks as well. Some fun stuff. A website is in the development, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, can I tell what happened to me, though?
Please.
Yeah,
I'm a little upset for you.
So, we use our Google Docs to go back and forth with each other, and I've gotten so used to that automatic save deal on Google that I don't even think about it anymore. So I was working on our website on a site that I won't mention. 2.5 hours I put into it, and Baxter, I was literally probably 30 seconds away from sending it off to you and saying, hey, take a look at this before I publish it.
Yeah.
Computer froze. After I got back, all the work that I had done, the near-completed website, was gone.
Of course it was.
It was good practice. That's the way I look at it. It was a great practice.
Great trial run. Now we know what not to do.
That's right.
Oh, my gosh.
Kids, always click that save button. Always click the save button.
I've gotten into the habit from writing papers in college how I hit Control S, Control Save like you do in Microsoft Word. Yeah. But I will be on Facebook, I will be on wherever writing articles, and I will hit Control S and it doesn't work. And I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, I'm not in Microsoft Word, but it's just a force of habit. But if you have to take one thing away from our show this week, aside from all the great soccer knowledge, save. It definitely helps. But Simon and I are excited to be back in the studio together. Last week's show was a little crazy. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it.
I listened to most of it.
It was a little chaotic.
Yeah.
But we made it work. The technology was a little fuzzy with us. We had some fun guests on, but I wanted to get your All-Star talk real fast.
Sure.
I know it's not something we want to talk about too in depth, but we didn't get a chance to hear too much about it last week from you. Just kind of overall closing it up, nice little package, putting it away now. Final thoughts about the All-Star game last week?
Well, final thoughts, I think it's great that they ended up putting on a really good performance like they always do. I mean, a 2-1 win over Spurs. Along with that, we have the homegrown players. They end up tying the U20 Club America team 1-1. I know some people said, hey, that's ridiculous that we've got professional players that are tying a U20 team. But what people have to remember is that Club America team, granted it's U20s, but they play together all the time.
Exactly.
They've grown up pretty much in that system together.
They have, yeah. And
so
how many of those professional players for MLS, they'll all play together and actually start at their clubs?
Well, and that's the thing. They probably don't start. A few of them don't start. But from what I understand, they only had one practice. So you look at that, and to me anyways, it's a different take on it.
Absolutely.
That 1-1 result was actually quite well. I thought what was even more fun is reading about how the Club America players afterwards swarmed Landon Donovan and all wanted the picture with him.
I saw a lot of those selfies. They were like, a picture with, the legend, I was like, as long as they appreciate, for who he is, that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. But the overall game, because I was in the great outdoors, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch it. But just again, based on reading articles and what players had to say, like always, it's a successful event. Mixed feelings about it. I know some people want the game to go away. We feel that the game should continue. It is there's nothing wrong with MLS having some features of other American sports leagues because it is an American sports league. So having an all-star game, just like NFL has its Pro Bowl, Major League Baseball has its all-star game. Of course, the NBA has their all-star game. I see no problem with MLS having an all-star game. And on top of that, it is pretty cool to have these foreign clubs come in and play against these players.
Absolutely.
Now, do we both feel that things could go back to perhaps an East-West version or a MLS Americans versus MLS?
I would honestly love that.
Yeah, the MLS. I hate to say the word foreigners because that's kind of becoming almost politically incorrect to say, but you know what I'm getting at,
No, I definitely get what you're saying on that, but I think overall it was another, successful All-Star week as a whole. They won, so you can only disregard that too much,
Right?
It's a success.
Well, and from what I understand, the Spurs took it a lot more serious than Bayern Munich did.
They did. I think, and as we were speaking with Simon Mitchell last week, our colleague, our correspondent, I guess, he was saying that it was actually a bigger deal for Tottenham as well because of all the ties they have to American soccer.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because of all the former players, Jurgen Klinsmann obviously was a club legend.
Of course.
Brad Friedel was, he is now the ambassador basically for Tottenham soccer in America. Robbie Keane, who plays for the Galaxy now, he's a club legend. He said there's all these little, and DeAndre Yedlin with the national team, there's all these little things now
and Dempsey.
For Tottenham.
Dempsey played there as well.
Yeah, forget about him.
Misused, but he was there.
Exactly. But even still, he said because of that, he's like Tottenham has a very happy view of what Major League Soccer is because of the give and take that American soccer has done for them. So he said they were excited about it, and the build-up was well received. It wasn't here we go play against an American all-star team. It was a good bit of publicity on the British side of things.
And from what I understand too, the Spurs actually came over and trained together for the game. It wasn't like Munich last year where they were flying players in the day of the game.
It's ridiculous. That's the Germans though. What do you want from the Germans?
Right. And I understand that, it was a World Cup year, they wanted a longer break, but
yes.
It's just the whole way it was handled. Bitter taste on my mouth from last year versus this year.
Exactly. No, I completely agree with that. But in speaking of not of the Germans, but another international, the Italians. One specific Italian. There's the movie that's coming out called Ant-Man. So this is a very. I feel like if Paul Rudd got hurt, and couldn't fulfill his duty, Sebastian Giovinco, the Atomic Ant, as he is being called in Major League Soccer, could fill in and handle the role perfectly because. The rate he's playing right now, Simon, is MVP caliber. I almost want to give him the trophy already.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. He is carrying that team all on his own. I mean, the epitome of a number 10.
Absolutely.
He's the epitome of a number 10.
Absolutely. 16 goals, 10 assists through 21 games. He's 5'4", 130.
21 games. We've got 13 games to go in the season.
Yeah. Where did the season go? First off,
right? But he's on pace to break the record at this point, the goal scoring record.
Absolutely. I mean, his performance this last weekend was incredible. I mean, we've seen what he can do. He's scoring hat tricks left and right, like it's going out of style. And I think that if Giovinco continues to have a large run of success, it's going to send a message to so many other players saying, "Hey, Sebastian is a younger guy that has found some success. Maybe I'll head over there too,
Right.
The result of these younger guys that are not retiring, as it were, like a Pirlo or a Villa or, Frank Lampard or any of those other guys that NYCFC has on their team.
Right,
Gerrard.
yeah.
Sebastian, he's a younger guy. He was born in 1987. He's only a few years older than me. I'm only 23. He's still in his 20s. Like, he's still got a lot of years left in the tank.
Well, and, it's something actually I fault the league for a little bit. They like to push these huge signings of these older guys, but there's been quite a few younger DPs that have been signed. I mean, Portland has Milano over there, that Argentine. I'm blanking right now. I know there was another recent signing of a younger player. The league really, you don't even see much of them on the league's own website, and I think the league could do itself a huge favor by trying to shed itself of this retirement league image to actually push these guys. Who cares if it's not Steven Gerrard, if it is a Milano? Hype these guys up,
Exactly.
And then
they're doing way more good for the league.
Right. And then when these older guys come over, you can say, hey, yes, these guys are nearing the end of their career, but they want to finish in a strong league.
Exactly. And by younger players like Sebastian Giovinco coming over, not to say that guys like Andre Pirlo, David Villa are not going to do things for the league.
Right.
They're doing things in their own way. I think that they're helping to influence the younger generation of players that are saying, hey, Patrick Mullins, the young forward for NYCFC, he's getting to train with David Villa, one of the best strikers in the world throughout his career. I feel like that, in regards, is going to help the league long term. But right now, having Sebastian Giovinco, a young up-and-coming player, is going to do wonders for the league long term also.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course you throw in there a 26-year-old Giovanni Dos Santos.
Exactly.
So,
a household name across international soccer.
Right. So, the league is starting to pick up with signings like that. Now you can look at Drogba and say, man, old man Drogba, but hey, guess what, folks?
Shape.
Chelsea brought him back over from Turkey to play for a year.
Exactly. I feel like we would both kill to be in the type of shape he's in now at the age he's at. Is he 38, I think?
38.
I would kill to be in as good a shape as he is at 38.
I am 38, and I'm nowhere near that kind of shape.
You're not going to be signing a contract anytime soon, Simon?
I mean, I was at the Y yesterday lifting weights,
perfect.
But actually, I ran into one of my old college soccer buddies at the Y.
Oh, really?
And we were talking about just even going out and, playing a game of indoor. Being up here in Wisconsin, of course, we do have to play indoor during the winter. He said he's been lifting weights, he's been running, but he hadn't played soccer in a few years. And went in there to try to play and almost, keeled over because it's just a huge difference between being in shape versus being in game shape.
There's
and of course we're talking an indoor rec league versus the Premier League or MLS or Bundesliga, whatever it may be.
Absolutely, but it is definitely true. I've even noticed that too. I mean, I'm only not even a year removed from college, and the difference between playing rec soccer and college soccer is totally different because you take a week or two off, and all of a sudden your body's like, all right, I'm done, and then you go and play rec soccer, and you're just like, oh my gosh, how was I in shape? Like, This is awful.
I think about Baxter when back in my younger days, when I was 15, I had a hernia.
Oh, geez.
So I had the surgery, and then I had made the state team beforehand, but then I had the surgery. So it was a few weeks of recovery, but going into regional tryouts, so this is the old ODP system.
Yeah.
Went down to Iowa for the regional team tryouts. We did 3-a-day practices during those. I was in shape within 2 days of getting down there.
Holy
and
cow.
ended up actually making one of the one of the morning pool teams for the for the next step in the
That's
tryouts.
Fantastic.
But it was amazing how I look at that, just to go off what you're saying, I think, how was I able to have surgery, come back from it, 3 weeks later, and within 2 days get myself back into game shape?
That's impressive. I mean, that's impressive within itself. I mean, but that's kind of how soccer players as a whole, I think, their body development and everything. But going back to Giovinco here briefly before we move into our 50-50 segment, at this point, Simon, I'm a little, it's hard for me to make an argument against him and say, why shouldn't we give him the MVP trophy? I know there's 13 games left. But at this point, I mean, yes, Kai Kamara, you can make an argument for him. You can make an argument for David Villa, all the things he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie Keane, Kyle Larin, those guys are all doing good things, but they're not doing Sebastian Giovinco things.
No, I mean, he's, this club is, you feel like when you hear Toronto FC, you're always hearing about losses, but
yeah.
They had that tremendous 4-1 win over Orlando.
Yep.
Just yesterday and a couple weeks ago.
That's where Giovinco got a hat trick in.
Right, and then, we see that 3-3 draw with Columbus, talking about Kamara. They had the 2-1 win over Philadelphia, so they're doing pretty well over their last 5 or 6 games here.
Yep.
There are a couple of wins, there's a couple losses, they have a draw in there, but it's all because of one man, and I will say that it's because of Giovinco. I mean, he was with the team during the Gold Cup when, of course, they didn't have El Tidor with whatever, he's nothing right now. Michael
worried.
Bradley not being there, so you got to give credit to other players stepping up. But he's been carrying this team without a doubt.
And look at this: he leads the league in goals with 16. He leads the league in shots with 122. Kai Kamara is right behind him with 100, and then he leads the league in shots on goal with 52. So out of the 122 shots he's shot this year, he's scored 16 goals and put 52 of those shots on target.
And he's doing his job also as a teammate. I mean, he's 4th in the league in assists, and he's only 2 off of the top from Ethan Finley. So
that's a complete player right there. This is a very Robbie Keane-esque performance that we saw from him last year.
That's a great point. That's a perfect way to describe it.
Well, thank you.
We may argue about the 50-50, but I'm not going to argue with you at all about
that. Yeah, no, I mean, might as well. I mean, Sebastian Giovinco, you've got, I think, Simon and I's votes If we were allowed to vote.
Well, you might be. I
might. I don't know if I get a media vote this year. I didn't get a media vote last year. We'll see if I get one this year.
All right.
Speaking of which, though, we are going to move into our 50-50 segment. So for those of you that don't know, our 50-50 segment is the part of the show where Simon and I choose a topic in the soccer world, and we both take a side on it, and something that, should be talked about, usually more in depth, but we dedicate 45 seconds, each of us, 45 and 45 making 90, which is a soccer match. See what we did there? I know it's a clever little thing that we're like, oh, that's a cool idea, and then everybody else hears it and they're like, oh, that's just corny. But hey,
we're corny guys.
Exactly.
You know what, though? I'm a dad. You will be a dad someday.
Exactly.
I'm a dad. I have a right to be corny.
Exactly. It's part of the job contract.
That's right.
I'm trying to learn it now, so when we have kids, it'll be good to go.
I think at least once a day I get an eye roll from my daughters.
Like, Dad. And you were probably just like, that was funny.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
what are you
absolutely.
talking about? And you're an actor on top of being a dad, so you have a whole nother game that goes along with that.
It's very true. It's fun.
Exactly. So what are we talking about this week, Simon?
Well, so our friend Mr. Sepp Blatter, the head of FIFA.
Mafia.
He came out and said that, he's confirming that MLS is going to switch to a European calendar.
Interesting.
And then, of course, a few people asked MLS about this, and MLS basically said, no. I will tell you, there was a time where MLS was heavily thinking about it, and that was when the U.S. was bidding for the 2022 World Cup.
Way back in the day.
Right, and basically when FIFA came back and said, no, U.S. isn't going to host, Don Garber said, well, then we're not moving our calendar. We're fine with where we're at.
Simple as that, I guess.
So Baxter and I have different feelings about this, and we are going to discuss this each with 45 seconds without interruption, basically laying out our argument for whether we think MLS should switch to the European calendar or whether they should stay with where they are at.
Absolutely. I think you went first 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't matter to me.
I don't know. I mean, you can go if you want to. I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
You know what? I feel I've got a really good argument. So
okay. Well, I mean, my argument's probably not going to be that great, but I will do my best.
All right. You ready?
I think so.
Okay, here I go. So, no, I don't think MLS should switch to the quote-unquote European calendar because, first of all, there is no true European calendar. Now, Russia made the switch a couple of seasons ago. I actually think this may be their first, and they did it successfully. But teams in Norway the Scandinavian teams still have their own schedule that is identical to MLS's. We see other leagues that don't follow a strict European calendar either. You got leagues in South America, even really the Mexican league, it's close to the European calendar. But here's the biggest thing, is MLS can't right now. It still can't compete truly with NFL, with college football. But the biggest thing is weather. Our weather is so different here. All the games would have to start in the south and eventually make their way up north. We just can't do it with our weatherscape.
Time's up. Give you 2 extra seconds.
Thank you.
It's all about the weather. Okay. All right. I'll see.
Now there are things that, well, I'll let you talk first and then we'll do our usual little chat afterwards.
Exactly.
All right, you all set?
Sure.
All right, whistle is blowing right now.
All right. Well, obviously, I think that it could happen. I think that the United States is trying to become more credible in the eyes of FIFA, not necessarily for Sepp Blatter, but just international soccer as a whole. So if they were to adapt the general calendar that is what the FIFA world does and the rest of international soccer does, I think it would help obviously boost the credibility internationally, saying, oh, the Americans, they finally get it. It's good for them. Now, I do get what you're saying about competing with the NFL and all of that, but the fan base for Major League Soccer has continued to grow rapidly over the last few years. All the new players that have been brought over recently have helped with the growth of that. I feel that the league has enough backing that, sure, it's not going to compete with your Green Bay Packers on Sunday football, but if the league gets together and schedules the game appropriately, they're going to still have an appropriate fan base to watch.
All right, 45 seconds. Yeah, and I get that, Baxter. I don't see how you can schedule games in Toronto, in Chicago, even in Columbus during these winter months. I mean, you're really going to have to
put a dome on it, put a roof on the stadium.
And on top of that, I always go back to, hey, just because the rest of the world does it, which again the rest of the world doesn't.
Peer pressure.
It's the European, most of those European calendars, but
who's the credible leagues across the world though?
Well, but do you see people cutting down Norway for playing how they do? Because again, they have to because of their winters.
Exactly.
They have to play the summer fall calendar versus the winter. Whatever that ends up being. but
that's true.
Now the one thing I would like to switch for is just to get around these international dates.
Yes, I feel like we can maybe come with a fine ground between the two. That would be helpful.
Yeah, NASL, the second division, they do a split season, and I wonder if MLS might think about doing that someday.
Not a bad idea. Well, if that does happen, we'll talk about it here on Two Up Front. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, Major League Soccer has been redone, reused, everything, and basically has a whole new look now with all the new players that have come in. So we're going to talk about that and a lot more. This is Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Welcome back inside the studio. Our first segment, we were chatting about the Atomic Ant, no, not Paul Rudd, Sebastian Giovinco of Toronto FC, and all the accolades that continue to be thrown his way, Simon. We both have already cast our vote, our hypothetical Two Up Front show votes, for him to become the MVP. We're hoping he does. We'll see what happens. Kai Kamara might have something to say about that. So before we dive into our latest segment, which we are going to look at all of the transfers that have happened.
Well, not all of them. We don't have enough time for all of them.
That's true, not all of them. But Major League Soccer's transfer deadline day was today.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about that in a second. But while we were on the break, we were flipping around on Twitter, and we noticed that the Los Angeles Galaxy are taking on, is it Central? Is it Central?
Central FC.
Central.
Well, let's see. Well, it's Trinidad, so it's more like Central FC.
Central FC, man. In Champions League play tonight.
Yes.
And we looked at the starting lineup, and I don't recognize 90% of these guys on the starting lineup.
Of course, they got Zardes and Gordon up top.
Yes.
They got those two up front. I
don't recognize a single person in the midfield. You've got Raul Mendiola, Mika Virin, Kenny Walker, and Ignacio.
I thought Kenny Walker played basketball. Oh, that's pulling an old one out.
And Ignacio Magnato. Don't recognize any of those guys.
I know the goalkeeper, Brian Rowe.
Yes, I recognize
Dan Gargan in back.
Yep. Rafael Garcia I recognize, but then Tommy Meyer and Dave Romney at the center backs, I don't recognize either of them.
Yeah, and the only thing that's frustrating about this is during the Dos Santos signing, Bruce Arena, actually it was Chris Klein, came out and said, we're serious. We want to win everything. We want to be the first club to win Champions League. Now, granted, you're playing against a club from Trinidad, but I hate to see Bruce Arena come out at this. Who knows if Arena's even there?
Probably not.
But to come at this underestimating the first club they're going to play against, you can't come out and say, we're serious, we want to win this, we want to be the first MLS team to win this. And then what you put out there is 2 starters out of 11.
Yeah. Maybe.
And
3.
even then, I don't know. Well,
Dan Gargan gets... Dan Gargan and Zardes are probably the 2 of the starters.
Right.
Brian Rowe's going to be starting now since that guy, their goalie, Jaime Pinedo's gone.
Yeah, well, they signed Donovan Ricketts, though. And
they did.
I thought they were projecting him to be their starter again.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's what ends up happening. So we'll be following that as we're going along tonight. Definitely keep in mind that.
And you know what I'd like to see is actually, I kind of wish the Open Cup, that the Galaxy were still alive in the Open Cup, because I'd like to see how serious they would be taking that tournament, because they never do. And if you're going to sit there and say we want to win everything, that means you got to take everything serious, right?
Exactly.
So, but, speaking of Dos Santos, as you were saying, a lot of signings in Major League Soccer, even including up until today. We saw some rumors not come to fruition, others that did, of course, Dos Santos being the biggest one. But there were some big signings. Gaston Sarro for the Columbus Crew, another Argentine coming to the league.
Argentine.
Yeah, it seems like Columbus, they had Scaleto down there. They seem to be a club that really likes to find talent in Argentina. Obviously, Portland is another one. They've got, I think they're back down to 4 Argentinians now. But they had, Portland, we already talked about their young DP, their 22-year-old Milano signing with them. But they also got rid of Gaston Fernandez. Rumor is there was a rift between Gaston and Caleb Porter, and since signing Milano, he was kind of like, all right, see you later.
But I feel like that would have been a good partnership. But
yeah, well, you still have your Rudy there. You still have, obviously, Diego Valeri, who missed his first PK in the league this year against the San Jose Earthquakes. That would have been a big 3 points away from home for Portland.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Before we move on to other signings too, I'd like to touch upon this letter that I think is pretty awesome from Gaston Fernandez. Talk about a class act guy. He basically gets cut from the team. Now the team does say it was a mutual agreement, but from what I've read on the inside, is he was basically cut from the team. Yet he writes this letter both in English and in Spanish. I won't do the Spanish because I'm horrible at it, but he says, "Today is a bittersweet day for me. I'm leaving a beautiful place, a place in which I lived wonderful moments. It has been a very intense 18 months, and surely with the passing of time, I will continue to value it more and more. But I'm returning home to my country, to Estudiantes de La Plata," I apologize for my Spanish, "a club that I love so much. That is why I wish to thank all of my teammates, all the people that work for the club, Merritt, Gavin, and Caleb, for believing in me and for giving me the opportunity to be part of the history of this fantastic club. I also wanted to thank all the fans that made me not miss the stadiums in Argentina, because I don't have any doubts that Providence Park and its fans are the greatest in MLS."
Ooh.
This to me says all the world about how classy this guy is.
Yes.
"I wish the maximum success for the team and to my teammates. Perhaps someday our paths will cross again. For my country, I will always be looking for the news of the Timbers. I leave you with the greatest regard from the bottom of my heart." Now, if he truly was cut from the team, and this is what he ends up putting out there, I mean, talk about a class act.
Absolutely. Now, I do find that it's a little unfortunate that he did leave. I mean, I don't know a ton about Gaston. I know he's scored a few tremendous goals in his time at Portland, but
to me it was another classic case of him being just a bit misused.
Yes.
And, I have my gripes with Porter. Seems like any team I follow, I really have gripes with the coach.
I don't have too many issues with Jay Heaps in New England personally.
I could see that. But Porter, to me, is very reminiscent of Klinsmann. It's constant tinkering.
Exactly.
Almost
so
over
maybe Porter
coaches.
shouldn't be a national team coach then.
I certainly don't want to be.
Joking about
it. Yeah. No,
Jason Kreis.
Jason Kreis, I'd much rather see there. But I think Gaston was a bit underused and misused. And if there truly was a rift, when he was coming off one of his last games injured, Porter doesn't even go over to him and check on him.
Come on. That's just sad.
Yeah.
Now, some interesting transfer news, Simon. Nothing official went through on these few things I'm going to tell you about. These are a few transfer things that you might not have heard about, so I'm curious to get your reaction. So these are courteous of at MLS Transfers on Twitter, one of the more reliable places that you can go to find all the latest transfer news related to Major League Soccer. So that's at MLS Transfers. The first one out of the 3 that I want to share with you, Simon, is in regards to Tommy Thompson, San Jose young striker. There was rumors that Indy 11 and Schalke 2 were both interested in loaning out Tommy Thompson. However, San Jose had no plans to move him.
Okay.
So that was an interesting one. They also had information on Harry Shipp. The tweet read, Harry Shipp is not going to Marseille anytime soon. He had been scouted twice in person over the last 12 months. Sources say mixed reviews internally, though.
Huh.
Thoughts about that one?
I would be very surprised, and this is one we'll get to with the whole Drogba thing and with Chicago. I feel coming out actually on the better end with ended up being able to sign Gilberto off of waivers, but I can't imagine with what Yellop's trying to do down there in Chicago that he would let Harry Shipp go now. If this was 2 or 3 seasons down the road, maybe.
Horrible idea.
Yeah.
2 other ones fast. I'm a huge Harry Shipp fan, personally. I've never had a bad thing to say about him. 2 other ones that I find interesting. One about Dylan Powers. According to MLS Transfers, Palermo and Atlantia were both curious about him, but didn't go after him. They're saying that January move for him is definitely in the cards, though. So keep an eye on that. And then the last one is that San Jose had shown strong interest in Kenwyne Jones.
Oh, is that right?
Even as early as weeks ago, but nothing has transpired since then, obviously. But they were looking at Kenwyne Jones from the EPL.
Wow.
So, just a few things for you there. But MLS Transfers on Twitter best place to get all of the latest transfer news that is going on. And I definitely recommend checking them out. So,
all right. Well, there was another
a lot of things to say though. Didn't you?
Well, there was another rumor there too that Newcastle United were looking for Kemar Lawrence, who plays for the New York Red Bulls. Apparently, nothing has gone through. Obviously, with the window having been closed, there's been no news on that. But we'll check back on that one in January as well.
Absolutely. I think January there's going to be some more moves, I think, with people leaving in terms of MLS talent.
I agree. Yeah, I think we've had so many players come into the league. There's a point where the teams are going to have to say, okay, hold on here. We need to situate things.
There's going to be no MLS teams, MLS regular players left. It's going to be all these international guys that keep coming in. And at what point, then for the league?
And there are so many rules that the league has come up with that you theoretically could have a roster of 22 players of nothing but internationals.
You could.
Really.
You absolutely could.
But yeah, there's been some, going back to the Drogba dilemma, it looked like the Fire once again was going to get completely screwed out of another deal as they did with Jermaine Jones.
Yep.
And once you heard Drogba was going to the Impact, you're like, are you kidding me? I mean, I'm not a Fire fan, to be honest with you. But my heart kind of bled for them a little bit, thinking, once again, second year in a row. But then you see how much money Drogba got. You see the Fire probably didn't have to spend that when they ended up picking up a Gilberto, who he's been wanting to. He's a solid player. He wants to be in this league, and the Fire need a player like that. So once again, I think when it's all said and done, Drogba maybe will be there another year, but Gilberto, he's another young guy, born in '89. He could be there for quite some time.
Absolutely, a young, talented Brazilian player that I think that can bring a lot to what the Chicago Fire are trying to do. We did see the Wright brothers are united again. Sean Wright Phillips of now the New York Red Bulls has joined his brother Bradley,
and off to a great start. The first game they connected on a goal.
Brotherly love is there.
That's right. And then, of course, they had their 1-1 draw yesterday with Montreal. But how great is that to see this brother connection in New York? The original New York team. Yeah, you can say they play in Jersey, but all the New York teams play in Jersey.
Exactly. Why are they called New York? Because nobody wants to be played for a team called the New Jersey whatever.
No, I mean, you got the New Jersey Devils in NHL.
Jersey.
It has something to do with the Sports Commission. And actually, the Sports Commission of New Jersey tried to get a law passed that any sports teams that played in New Jersey had to be called New Jersey, and it didn't go through. But it's just the marketing thing.
That would be interesting, though, if the New Jerseys, New Jersey Giants, the New Jersey Jets, the Red Bulls, New Jersey City FC. No, I mean, New York doesn't. They play.
That's right.
They
play
in
a baseball
New York,
stadium.
thankfully.
Yep.
But even still, though.
Yeah. But, I think the Wright Phillips, and for the fact that I'm not sure how they all worked it. Maybe they used their targeted allocation money. But for the fact that Sean is not considered a DP, I think is probably a big thing.
That's absolutely huge for the team as a whole. Any other transfers that really stick out to you in terms of players that are brought over?
There was, where did it go? There was one more that was on here. But I'm blanking on it right now. Of course, Cubo Torres is officially on the Dynamo roster.
Dave Romney was a player. Okay, that makes sense. I'm just seeing that the Galaxy signed Dave Romney, that guy. We were like, why is he a center back?
Oh, right. Okay.
But that's good to know. I didn't realize that.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah. Now you were talking about there were rumors of Chicharito still being in play.
Yeah, there was rumors that we didn't really know if they were going to happen or not, but there was small reports that the Fire threw $10 million Chicharito's way. Obviously, we didn't hear anything about it, so we can assume that it didn't happen. And then there was another rumor that San Jose threw $6 million, another big Mexican player's way. I can't think of his name right now. One of their midfielders, one of their big midfielder guys. And obviously nothing really came to that as well. But you can see that the draw to want to bring in some of those top Mexican players are there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and kudos to the Galaxy for pulling off that Dos Santos deal.
Do you like the move?
I do. He's a young guy. I think he's going to do well in the midfield. I'll talk about a little bit more in the power ranking segment. Yes. But I do. I've got no problem with that move. How about yourself?
I don't mind it. I think that it makes the Galaxy even more dangerous than they already were. I think if they can get the right pieces together with Sebastian Legit and Stevie G and Dos Santos and Zardes and all the other attacking options, Jorginho in the middle, they've got a lot of different guys that they can throw at you. Robbie Keane, obviously, as well up top. They've got a strong, potential starting six. That attacking six coming at you could be fierce.
I think the difficulty that Arena's going to have is where does he play all these guys?
Exactly. And we'll see what comes up with that. Dos Santos, he can mix at forward, but he can also play out wide as well. Stevie G, he'll play in the middle, maybe that attacking. If they play a diamond, maybe they might go that way, but I don't know what Sebastian Legit plays. I think he's more of an outsider. But yeah, I'm curious to know what Bruce Arena really does now that he's got all of his new toys together, and we'll see how he throws them out there.
And I wonder, are the Galaxy done tinkering as much as they have this last? I mean, you lost Beckham, you lost Donovan. Now you brought in Dos Santos, you brought in Gerrard. Of course, you still have Robbie Keane there. You mentioned Zardes. You've got Omar Gonzalez in back, thankfully.
AJ De La Garza's played well.
Right.
Dan
Gargan.
Robbie Rogers.
Yeah, so I do think right now the Galaxy has one of the potentially strongest lineups.
Yeah, starting
in this
11.
League. Starting 11, yes.
Coming off the bench. Depth-wise, I don't know.
I don't either. I don't know enough about
their
It's
hard
reserves.
to find a lot of MLS teams, at least in my knowledge, that have strong starting 11s and strong even like 3 to 4 guys off the bench also.
Yeah, and that's again when you're looking at the money of the league, you can't help but have your team that way.
Yeah.
That's the reason that these MLS teams can start off strong in Champions League, but then when you're looking at, in the later rounds, when basically MLS is in preseason, and that's the toughest thing going back to the calendar, is that Champions League, they do great in the round robin.
Yes.
But that's because they're in mid-season form. Then you get to the knockout stages, and all of a sudden you're in preseason form, But that is also where we see the lack of depth. We see these Mexican teams come in, and they have 22 strong players.
Yeah.
But they've got the money to do that.
Exactly. And now that MLS is maybe starting to figure things out with the allocation money now too, so hopefully that maybe we can add some more players.
It may. Brad Evans made a big statement about the going back on the collective bargaining agreement. He said, it's interesting to me how these owners kept claiming to us that they're losing money, yet in this transfer window, we see them spend all this money on Giovanni Dos Santos, Pirlo coming in, even of these other DPs, even Sean Wright-Phillips. So how can these owners be sitting here saying, look, guys, we don't have as much money for this league as you're making it out to be. And then 6 months later after signing the contract, boom, millions and millions of dollars being spent.
Yeah, I wonder the shadiness of all of that.
Yeah, well, and, Brad Evans was saying he was one of the guys. And, of course, this is easy to say after the fact. Brad Evans was saying that he was one of the leaders in there saying, we got to hold tight. We got to hold tight. And he's saying, in 4.5 years now, when the next CBA comes up, we have to stay stronger than we were.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree 100%. So any other final thoughts, Simon? I know you had a brief thought about the Champions League. Real Salt Lake, they won their first game.
They did. Real Salt Lake won their first game. I like to, you got to say this, that in round one so far, no MLS team has lost. Now, of course, that's because Real Salt Lake, very quick goal. I think it was in the first minute or second minute that they went up on Municipal of, I believe it's Guatemala. I believe it is, because I know that was one of the longer treks in the Champions League this year.
I believe so, yes.
And so there were two other teams, MLS teams.
City.
Okay. There were two other teams in MLS that played Champions League that also didn't lose, but that's because the Sounders and the Whitecaps tied 1-1. But that's a big draw for Seattle because that was in Vancouver.
That is.
And the way Seattle's been in the league,
it's about time. I saw one of my friends on Twitter last night like, Seattle finally scored!
That's right. Yeah, right.
It's about time.
Are they going to be the Montreal Impact from last year where it did terrible in the league, but all of a sudden...
Well, now that Montreal has a few more weapons at their disposal, I'm curious to know what they're going to do in Champions League play.
Curious enough, by the way, there is a U13 CONCACAF Champions League now.
Why?
And the 8 teams were invited. It only lasted a week.
Okay.
Montreal Impact was invited because of what their senior team did. DC United's academy. What's that?
Academy teams.
Academy teams,
where are they getting these players from?
Academy teams. Montreal has already qualified for the semifinals, apparently, and I'm not sure about DC. But there you go. A little fun fact for you.
Good to know. The more you know, Simon. All right, we're going to go to another break. When we come back, the EPL is just around the corner.
We'll talk about it a little bit.
Why not? I don't know. We'll see what we can figure out about that. And then the new FIFA rankings apparently are also out also. We're going to talk about that and so much more. This is Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon, in our last segment, we had a chat about all the craziness that has been Major League Soccer and all the transfers surrounding it. We had a lot of fun things to say about it. We'll see what happens in the January transfer window as well, as we try to figure out what exactly is going to, shake down. There's rumors that Harry Shipp, Tommy Thompson, other young guys might be headed out of Dodge, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with them. It's still very early in their careers and just the soccer calendar also.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Baxter. We're going to see a lot more movement the other way. We'll see a little bit of movement this way, players coming over to MLS in January, but I do think there's going to be a lot of movement outwards of the league.
Well, Simon, before we get into the EPL action, which commences on Saturday, the latest FIFA rankings for the men have come out, and
Jamaica's number one, right?
Yeah,
Jamaica's
of course.
number one in the world?
No, Mexico.
Oh, Mexico.
They got a penalty kick to become the number one team in FIFA.
Oh, okay.
That's how they settled it this year.
What happened is all the representatives were walking into the big FIFA hall where they announced the new rankings, and a couple of Mexican representatives fell over. So Geiger called.
He just showed up.
Number one ranking for Mexico.
Showed up and pulled out the number one ranking. Thank you, Mark Geiger. People love you for that. Surprisingly, though, now that you say that, Mexico 26th on the overall rankings. The United States moving up 5 spots. They're at number 29, Simon. Majority because the CONCACAF Gold Cup is now in the books, so all the CONCACAF teams do see a bit of a jump. The top 10 is what really grinds my gears, though, Simon, at the end of the day.
Well, it's just silly to me. You've got Belgium at number 2 and Germany at number 3. I've joked about this before. It'd be nice if there was a tournament to really figure out who's number 1. Oh, wait, there is.
Oh, which is why Argentina's first.
Right. Who lost to Germany? And we know it's a joke.
Can you remind me of the great run that Romania and Wales had at the World Cup, please? Because they're obviously top 10 teams.
Right. Well, no, I can't.
Well, that's right, because they didn't qualify. That's right.
So, of course, there's all the European Championship qualifications going on. But
the Netherlands dropped 7 spots. They're down to 12 now.
You've got Slovakia and Austria tied at 14. The one thing here's the one thing I'll say. I think the U.S. being at 29 is actually very legitimate.
Yes.
I think especially with the way they've been performing, I think a 29 in the world ranking is pretty fair.
Sure.
Mexico, what are they at, 26?
Yeah.
I'm not too sure that Costa Rica should be as low as 38.
Costa Rica is down at 38. I'm a little shocked by that.
I mean, their result at the World Cup was fantastic.
It is, and I don't think that their Gold Cup performance should be enough to drop them, especially with how they went out.
Exactly, yeah. But, of course, they don't figure that in. They don't figure out bad calls into the equation.
Because FIFA makes bad calls on their own.
But I think the one thing I'd say is, for my money in CONCACAF right now, Yes, Mexico won the Gold Cup, but I still don't think it's a victory to be celebrated for them after the favors that were handed to them.
Absolutely.
But I definitely don't see Costa Rica being lower than the U.S. right now.
No, I mean the top 5 in CONCACAF. Mexico is the highest ranked out of the 5 at 26. USA 29, Costa Rica 38. Jamaica jumps up 21 spots, rightfully so, to 55, and then TNT at 56. They jumped up 8 spots. Canada, even though they didn't score a single goal, still managed to go up 2 spots to 101. And Guatemala, they're at 108.
Yeah, they're
Panama, Honduras.
Guatemala's on their downslide. They had their golden generation.
Where's Cuba? Where's Cuba on this list?
I don't know. I don't know if Cuba even makes the list.
I don't see Cuba on this list. Cuba's 119.
It's pretty sad for Canada when you're 7 spots away from Antigua and Barbuda. That's how do you say it? I don't know. Barbada? I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyways, it's that's where we're at with the FIFA rankings, and people can say, it's the rankings. They don't really mean much. That's true until the World Cup years come around and they use that for seedings. Then it does matter. So, there was a time where FIFA had to redo the rankings because they had the U.S. as high as number 4.
That's just stupid.
But even then, so U.S. is ranked number 4 in the world. Mexico was like at 18.
Sure.
But they still gave Mexico a top 8 seed for the 2006 World Cup.
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
I think Mark Geiger was there.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. He
is. Call it like gargering or something. Gargering. I don't
Geigering.
know.
Yes, you got Geigered.
You got CONCACAF and
Geigered. Yes.
That makes sense. Now, real briefly, I want to just jump over to the women's rankings. USA has regained the top spot. They're number 1 now in the FIFA World Rankings, rightfully so.
Yeah.
They are just a bit ahead of Germany at number 2, which makes sense because Germany played a fantastic World Cup overall. France at 3, Japan at 4, England 5. The Lionesses really did a fantastic job with this last World Cup, and it was just unfortunate the way they went out with that own goal against Japan.
Yeah.
Brazil at 6, Sweden 7, North Korea at 8, Australia at 9. They had a great World Cup as well, and then Norway at 10. Canada the host nation,
down to 11.
They dropped all the way to 11.
Of course, they didn't do too well in the knockout rounds. So
they didn't. No, Canada was very disappointing, I think, overall. It's just been a disappointing year for Canadian soccer overall. With between the Women's World Cup, which I thought they should have been a Final Four contender, I feel like, and then the men's team couldn't get off the ground and could not score open net goals in qualifying also. So, it's hard. Women's soccer is a little bit different in terms of how their rankings work out with, how much it really means. I really only pay attention to that top 10 because women's soccer, they actually do a fairly good job of where the shifting goes. It's the men, obviously, that all the controversy swarms around them.
And I think a lot of that is just because of all the different tournaments that the men do play versus the women.
Yes.
And the number of teams, too,
absolutely.
The men's game's got 100 years on the women's game, so that's understandable. But speaking of international, Baxter, I don't know if you saw this. There was the draw for the U17 World Cup in Chile.
How did that work out?
We got the U.S. is in Group A with the host nation Chile, Croatia, and Nigeria. So not the group of death, but that's going to be a difficult group to move out of.
I'm looking at this group. If I'm going based off of, I'd say Group C.
Same with me. Yep, you've got Australia, but you get Germany, Mexico, and Argentina.
Those youth teams for the bottom 3 there are going to be incredible.
And Mexico's always strong with their U17 team. Group D, you got Belgium, Mali, Honduras, and Ecuador. So Belgium should have a pretty easy time moving out of there. Group E is South Africa, Costa Rica, North Korea, that is, and Russia. I don't see much difficulty for Russia getting out of that one, and perhaps even Costa Rica getting out of that one. And then Group F, you have New Zealand, France, Syria, and Paraguay.
Syria, wow.
So yeah,
they're
Group
letting
C,
those guys out of the country to go.
I guess so.
Good for them.
But Group C is definitely the group of death, and we'll see if the U.S. moves on. I think you'd have to say that Chile and Croatia are definitely the favorites, and we'll see if Nigeria, USA can end up being a third-place team that moves on.
We saw Nigeria kind of surprise people at the Women's World Cup, so I'm curious to know how well the men play.
Yeah,
especially at the U17 level. You think of those African nations, I don't really think of too many dominant lower tiers.
Right. Nigeria though tends to surprise at the youth level.
They always find a way to do that.
They do, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have too much in-depth knowledge with the youth teams, but just basing off of what I've seen in past U17 World Cups.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my gut's telling me.
Absolutely. Well, Simon, this coming weekend on Saturday kicks off the wonderful. Well, technically, the season has already started because Community Shield happened last week. Arsenal, woo! I don't really know. Okay, Arsenal won 1-0. They took out Chelsea, so good for them. Some of you that follow me on Twitter at Baxter Colburn, you can follow Simon at Simon Provan. I was asking on Twitter today, I'm trying to find a EPL team to follow religiously. I followed the New England Revolution in Major League Soccer, and I'm trying to find an EPL team that I really want to actually follow. I've casually followed Arsenal.
Right.
I've had good friends that are Man U fans, that are Chelsea fans, Man City fans. You're an Everton fan. And I'm just trying to find a team. I don't want to be that guy and be like, well, Chelsea's always good or Man U's always good.
Please don't. Please don't.
And that's why when I kind of chose Arsenal a few years ago, I didn't feel bad about it because Arsenal has good years and Arsenal has bad years. I'm like, okay, they seem like a pretty middle of the road to relatively.
I will say, I think this year, not to jump ahead of you, sorry,
no, you're fine.
But I think this year they're going for it. I mean,
I think so.
I think actually getting Peter Cech as their goalkeeper was a huge pickup from them.
It's a fantastic move, and that's part of me is kind of wondering, well, do I stay with Arsenal? And if I do, I need to fully invest in that team. Mm-hmm. You know, I want to put more of an effort into it. We've got good friends. I've got good friends. Simon Mitchell, who was on the show last week, he's a big Tottenham Spurs fan. Tottenham's I like Harry Kane. I really, really like Harry Kane. I'm curious, to see how well he does. So I don't know if you have any recommendations out there. One of my friends on Twitter, Jacob Rude, he was sending me Manchester City highlight videos today. He was like, "Oh, this is why you should be a City fan." I'm like, I couldn't be a City fan. I'm sorry. It's kind of like liking the Yankees. You just you like them for their money, not for how they actually do.
Right. I totally agree with that.
Yes. So looking ahead, this coming weekend's fixtures, interesting first slot of games. Man U takes on Spurs to open up the thing. That'll be the marquee game of the weekend. I can guarantee you
Absolutely.
that.
Well, it's funny. I shouldn't say it's funny, but interesting that Spurs head coach came out and said that basically there's no way we can be a top 4 team anymore.
Ouch.
Because of the money that Man U spent, that Arsenal spent,
that
really Chelsea spent.
They
did. Manchester United is my pick to win the league this year, without a doubt. It's
okay.
I think
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Sure.
Mine.
Yeah. Oh, I don't mind.
That makes sense, though.
I think Van Gaal has really got his hands on that club now.
I think so.
It's his team now.
It is. He's done enough to get rid of the old players, I guess.
Old players
and the new ones.
And there's talk with the whole Di Maria transaction that he actually didn't want that player there, and pretty much made it evident.
Yeah, I think it helps the club as a whole. And Di Maria, if you go back and listen to our show last week, I was asking Simon Mitchell from a British perspective, right? Well, how do you think players like Di Maria do? I was asking him about Eric Lamela, Bastian Schweinsteiger, and at Man U. I said, okay, how do you think these players do in the EPL? And he said, well, Bastian Schweinsteiger, the German league, they play very slow. He's like, the EPL is very fast. He's like, I don't think Schweinsteiger is going to work out long-term for Man U because of how slow he's used to playing. Not that he's not a talented player.
Sure.
He said the run of pace, I think I think he's going to surprise Bastian Schweinsteiger initially.
Sure, and I'm going to disagree with that a bit, though, because Bayern doesn't play as slow as the rest of the Bundesliga
No,
does.
Absolutely not. And that's why I had a little bit of reservation about it. It made sense, like the German league as a whole.
Sure.
But Bayern Munich is a whole other brand.
It's a whole other brand, since... Definitely, if we're talking all the way up to even the mid 2000 aughts, if that's how we want to say it, it was a slower league. But we saw it with the German national team. They went away from playing that German shell to actually going at other teams. Schweinsteiger, he's been injured for quite a while, and he's finally 100% healthy.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to shock him too much. I really don't.
Okay.
No offense, the other Simon, but
of course, we got to get both Simons on the show. I'm going to be so confused. Like, Simon, what do you think? Well, Simon, you. What? Simon. The real Simon, please stand up. I guess.
I will say, if you don't mind me talking to Everton for a second,
please.
I think Everton will get their win this weekend over Jay Demerit's former team, Watford.
Watford
promoted back again in the Premier League.
Yeah,
but I think that'll be Everton's only win for about 4 or 5 weeks, because then they have a slew of teams that they're playing in the what I will say the top 5 or 6.
Okay. Well, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, the other week action, you've got Norwich City against Crystal Palace, AFC what is that?
Bournemouth, something like that,
against Aston Villa.
Yeah, in Villa, we'll see if Guzan gets his starting goalkeeper job back.
And they lost Christian Benteke as well.
That's right.
That's their premier striker, so we'll see what they do. Leicester City versus Sunderland. Chelsea versus Swansea. I wouldn't be shocked if Chelsea just maul Swansea. But ESPN FC, they think Swansea City is going to finish 7th in their Premier League predictions.
Well, they certainly do, and Swansea's been a very strong mid to upper mid-table club since they've been in the Premier League. It's, maybe that's why Wales is ranked number 8 in the world, because of Swansea, because Swansea's actually in Wales, if you didn't know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Swansea, and I believe it's Norwich that's also in Wales. I'd have to double-check on that. But, yeah, there's 2 Welsh clubs that play in the English table.
I had no idea.
English leagues.
The more you know, I guess.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, finishing out the final 3 games, you've got Arsenal and West Ham, Stoke City, Liverpool, and Newcastle United and Southampton.
I think that Newcastle-Southampton game could actually be fun to watch. I don't think it's going to be great soccer, but those are 2 comparable clubs with each other. So.
Absolutely. No, I definitely think so. There's one more game. I'm sorry. I lost it. West Brom and Man City play on Monday, August 10th.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Man City just...
They're going to do very mean things.
It's at West Brom, so maybe it won't be a slaughter. That was the word I was going to use. Because if there's one league where it does matter if you're playing at home or not, it does tend to be the Premier League.
It does. It does.
It helps out the teams, it seems like, quite a bit. So yeah, but like I said, I'm going to go back and say Manchester United is my pick, and maybe next week or so we can get your prediction on that.
I just need to do a little bit more homework before I just throw out something like that.
I'm shocked that Sunderland stayed alive, so I want to pick Sunderland to be the team that does drop. I think West Ham will stay up. I think Leicester will fall this season as well. I'm going to agree with ESPN on that.
Okay.
But I don't see Sunderland staying on top.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, right now, ESPN's top 6, they have Chelsea at 1, Arsenal 2, Man United 3, City 4, Liverpool 5, and Tottenham Spurs at 6. The top 10 is rounded out with Swansea, Southampton, Everton, and Stoke.
I'll be very happy if Everton... I shouldn't say very happy. I'll be happy if they finish up in the top 10 this season. But, man, they struggled on the backside of the season. Liverpool... I think they could surprise a few people.
Now that they have Christian Benteke, I think they might do much better.
Yeah, and Rodgers, he seems like the type of manager that I would certainly like to play for. But, we'll see. They're still a little bit in flux, but I just have this gut feeling that they're going to surprise a few people.
We'll see.
And that's coming from an Everton fan, folks.
So. That's very true. Absolutely. All right, well, we're going to go to another break. When we come back, we will have more MLS-focused talk for you as we get to our predictions and our new power rankings as well. This is 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Proban.
Welcome back in studio. For all of those of you watching us on Periscope, big thank you to that. Remember, you can go back and watch the show if you're that interested to see what Simon and I look like and do during the show. You can go to our Twitter feed at Two Up Front Soccer and check us out that way. You can also like us on Facebook, Two Up Front Soccer. You can follow Simon at Simon Provan on Twitter, and you can follow myself at Baxter Colburn. We love hearing from you. We love checking in with you, the listener. We've had a lot of great engaging conversations over the last few weeks since we've been on the air. Only 2 episodes away, Simon, from our 20th episode.
Yeah.
We are continuing to grow the brand that is Two Up Front. So a big thanks to all the people that have made that possible. And we're going to be doing a lot of remote broadcasts coming up the next few months.
I'd say that's one of our favorite things to do.
It is. It absolutely is. We were at the Milwaukee Barons tailgate a few weeks ago, and we were down at Soldier Field as well for a CONCACAF Champions League game. So we've got a few things in the works with some of our friends, a good friend James Moran of the Milwaukee Barons. We're going to be maybe doing a few pub tours here in the next few months. So stay tuned for that. For details, social media is the best way to do that. And like we mentioned earlier as well, there are rumors and workings of a actual Two Up Front website as well. So as that continues to get developed and saved, we will be sure to save it, to share it with you and save it, or whatever we end up doing with it. So, but Simon, Major League Soccer, as we know and love it, continues to wow us with many, many surprising performances and exciting different adventures that occur.
Especially this past weekend.
61 total goals, a record-breaking setting weekend. And something that I think definitely deserves to be talked about. But I think that what really surprises me is just the teams that did it.
Right.
DC United 6-4 against Real Salt Lake, an absolute barn burner. You see some of the goals. Nick De Leon. That's how I could see it. My brain just didn't. The words and stuff just didn't work like they normally don't.
I've been there.
It happens.
Daily for me, actually.
Yeah, same here. And I don't know why I'm in broadcasting sometimes. And then Orlando goes 5-2 on Columbus. That was a bit of a surprising result. Kyle Larin doing everything in his power to keep that game. He just had a fantastic season.
Speaking of MVPs, too,
absolutely.
I mean, he's wrapped up Rookie of the Year, hasn't he?
100%. New England gets another win. Woo! Finally.
3-1 as well over Toronto FC.
Happy about that.
Charlie
Galaxy,
Davies with a couple of goals.
2 goals. He is carrying that team. He's got 9 goals on the year. I mean, carrying is a very loose term because the team is struggling to stay afloat. They're only 1 point out of second place, though, in the East. Fun fact. Yeah. They're in 4th place, but they're only a point out of second because the team above them is somebody that is better than them. Toronto. No. Now they've dropped. I'm sorry, because of the new standings. But New England
but
New England, Columbus, and Toronto are all technically tied for 3rd with 31 points. The Red Bulls have 33 points, DC 41, and then the Montreal Impact come in at 6th place with 28 points. So
and look at the Red Bulls. They're 3 games behind, or not three games behind, but they have 3 games less that they've played versus DC. So actually, you throw 9 points on there. If they were to win those, you got a new number 1 in the East.
Absolutely.
So, good job for United. They've got 2 wins in a row now, and actually the last game too. It was 3-2 against. Was it Philadelphia?
It was. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I shouldn't be spacing on
as
that.
well, but
it
was against Philadelphia.
They beat the Union 3-2.
Yep.
But then they just had a more recent game.
Than the 6-4
against RSL. So good for them. DC, I think, kind of continuing to prove, hey, we're still kind of relevant. We're still kind of good. Keep an eye on us.
Yeah, and of course, RSL didn't have Ramondo in for that game, so I wonder if the result would have been different.
I think so.
Real goes
Nick
up.
Ramondo's a game changer, no matter how good or bad the other 10 players are on the field in front of him.
Yeah, and DC, this would have been their 2nd game in a row going down 2-0. Well, it was their 2nd game in a row going down 2-0.
But they changed the outcome, thankfully.
They did, yeah.
Thankfully. Well, aside from that, not too many other things. We talked about the Toronto FC 4-1 thrashing over Orlando with Giovinco's hat trick just happening yesterday. And there's no other MLS action that takes place until Friday.
Now, let me just point this out, though. This is the luck of the league.
Okay.
So Sunday is their games that they have on national TV.
Yes.
So the Fire Dallas game, that was an exciting game.
It was. I heard it was a lot of fun. Yep.
2-0 win for Dallas. I did watch that one. Of course, I watched the San Jose Portland game.
For Chicago, not Dallas.
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Chicago.
I was like, Chicago that one.
Surprising for both teams. I'll say it in that way. How
absolutely.
That?
Yeah, absolutely.
But but the one game that's on ESPN ends up being the lone 0-0 game.
Couldn't have been the 6-4 game. You know, might have been able to recruit a few more, followers of the league with a 6-4 game. But oh my gosh, that's just how it goes. The one game this entire weekend that doesn't have a single goal scored.
Yeah.
I would have taken a 1-1 draw that Sporting and Houston produced over there.
And I'll tell you what, too, watching the Portland-San Jose game, you could have sworn there were going to be at least 2 or 3 goals in that game, but it didn't come to fruition, including a Valeri missed PK.
That'll come back to bite you, which it did. It absolutely did. But speaking of teams that are taking advantage, though, Vancouver, another big win against a Cascadia team. They beat Seattle 3-0. Vancouver continuing to etch themselves farther and farther up the table.
Yes, indeed.
They are the lone holders of first place, with just a point above FC Dallas and the Galaxy, who is at 37. But the 2 other Cascadia teams, Portland at 5th place with 33 points, Seattle in 6th with 32 points. Vancouver is definitely proving that they are the cream of the crop in terms of Cascadia teams right now.
Yeah, they're way ahead, too, in the Cascadia Cup standings.
They are, yes.
And, of course, Seattle loses yet another game at home.
Yeah. That's just rubbing salt in the wounds. But looking forward this week, Simon, starting with your Portland Timbers, they take on the Chicago Fire on Friday night, which will be later than when you hear this broadcast on Sports Radio America, which you can hear on Fridays from 3 to 6 Eastern. And Portland and Chicago for our first prediction. How do you feel, Simon?
Portland and Chicago.
A Friday night
game in the sweet state of Oregon. I'm going to go with Portland for this one.
Okay. Very good. I think Chicago's going to pull up an upset on this one after their nice 2-0 victory over FC Dallas. They've got some confidence riding high. I think that, especially with Gilberto now in the lineup, that they're going to cause a ruckus.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, especially with the way Portland's been playing once again.
Exactly. Now, this game traditionally has been a lot of fun to watch. Toronto against Sporting Kansas City, but if you take Sebastian Giovinco out of the mix, Toronto has pretty much got nothing.
Right.
So I think, but because they've got Giovinco, this game will be relevant. I think it'll be fun to watch, but Sporting has got a more polished product. I think they'll win, but it'll be close. I think this is like a 3-2 kind of game because I think Giovinco is going to make an impact and at least get 1 goal in this game.
I'll tell you what, Sporting has not been scoring very much, and they were hard done in their game against Houston. A clear handball by Houston in the box. The ref actually changed his story about that whole deal as well.
Of course
I think Sporting is going to be way too hungry after the injustice that was done to them, and they're going to end up winning this one in Toronto.
Dom Dwyer, I think, is going to keep getting some goals. Orlando and Philly. I've got Orlando in this game. Kyle Larin, Kaká, those guys are combining for a lot of fantastic goals. They sure are.
You win 5-2 over a strong Columbus team. I go with you as well. I think Orlando's going to take this one. Now, that's not to say Philly hasn't been playing well.
No,
they've
have
been doing all right, but I think Orlando's been playing better.
Exactly. Montreal and DC United. DC United in this one traditionally would have my vote, but now that Montreal's got all their new toys, I'm pulling for Montreal to win this game.
I think, I'm going to go with you as well. DC, they've put in 9 goals in their last 2 games.
Yeah.
But they've also given up 6 goals,
which makes me worried.
That's right. I think with Montreal's weapons that they have now, I don't know if they've made any announcement whether he'll be playing in this game or not.
I don't know. But even still, I think this would be my upset, I guess, if you were to call it this.
Sure. And I'm going to agree with you on that.
All right, Colorado and Columbus. Not a very exciting game. Colorado, they've won 3 out of their last 4 games, though. Columbus coming off a spanking this last week. I think Columbus is going to be hungry, but Colorado, 3 out of their 4 last games have been victories. Colorado gets a victory in my mind.
Yeah, they're playing at home, Colorado, which they did lose to the Galaxy 3-1 in their last game there. So that's going to get them hungry. I think Columbus, though, Kamara, Finley, they're going to get this together this week. And if there's one team that they can do it against,
it's
going to be Colorado. So I'm going to go with Columbus.
The Dominic Kinnear Cup, Houston and San Jose taking each other on.
I feel like this game happens almost every weekend.
It really does. How many times can you play the same team?
Right.
I'm a little confused by that. I really don't care. I'm going to take a draw.
What?
I know.
What?
I know. Say it ain't so. I'm taking a draw.
Say that. Yeah, I was going to say that one more time just so I made sure I heard you right.
Houston and San Jose are going to draw because I really just don't care about this game.
Well, let's see. Houston, they beat Galaxy 3-0 on the 25th. They had a draw on the 1st with Sporting. That should have been a loss for Houston.
Absolutely.
San Jose, they've been the team that I was a fan of them early in the season.
You were pulling for them.
They just keep going back and forth.
They haven't won in 6 games.
They didn't look that great against the Timbers. I'm going to go with Houston on this one.
There you go. Fair enough. Vancouver and Real Salt Lake. Nicky Ramondo's back in goal for RSL, but Vancouver's too hot to handle, in my opinion, right now. They've got my pick to win this game.
They've got my pick as well. RSL is also another not dysfunctional team, but their results are just all over the place.
Exactly.
They're not consistent.
They're not.
That's what I'm trying to say. See? Happens once a day.
Post, Jason. There you go. That's the only one. You get no more the rest of it.
Right.
I'll cut you off. I will unplug your microphone from the rest of the show if you mess up.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Galaxy and Seattle.
This one's too easy again.
It is.
I mean, rarely will I say an LA-Seattle game is an easy pick, but LA clearly is the choice for this one.
Absolutely. They've got my pick. They are going to trot out all their stars for this game, and maybe that's why they're not all playing in CONCACAF game tonight.
That could be.
Is that they're saving them because they've got a 3-day turnaround where they will take on Seattle. They're in the 4th minute right now against Central FC down in Trinidad. Or no, they're home, right? They're home tonight. I'm sorry. But they're probably resting some of their bigger guys, I would assume. So that way they can go and beat up on Seattle and really assert their dominance.
That's a great point, Baxter. We didn't give them enough credit for now having to balance.
Yeah, now that I'm aware of this, it makes far more sense if that is the reason.
Right.
Right. And if not, well, that's what we're going to say is the
exactly.
reason. So LA gets both of our votes.
The last thing I'll say too, though, as much as I said usually this wouldn't be an easy pick, I kind of lied when I said that. LA seems to have Seattle's number.
They really do.
Even Sounders fans will admit to that too. They tend to be the team that the Sounders just can't get past, whether it's regular season or in the playoffs.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you on that one. And I think this is going to be another. It's an ESPN game. It's at 3 p.m. on Central Time. If you're by a TV, go check it out. It'll be good.
It'll be a good game. Plus, it's Dos Santos's inaugural game in MLS.
What a game to watch. And then the what is this? What do we call it now? The derby is this? This is
the Hudson.
The Hudson Derby.
Hudson
Derby. The Red Bulls and NYCFC. I normally would take the Red Bulls, but I like.
Normally, but last time you picked NYCFC as well.
Well, normally I take NYCFC, so I'm going to take them. Isn't that what I said? Obviously. Yeah, I'm taking the Blues on this one.
You are taking the Blues.
I am.
You are. Well, I'm taking the Red Bulls.
Fair enough.
I have in every one of their games.
I know you have.
The Red Bulls.
I know you have. I wonder if our good friend Sonia Kondratenko. I'm sure she'll be at the game. She's always at those games.
Oh, LA just scored.
Hey,
LA's up 1-0.
Who scored? Zardes?
Alan Gordon. Of course, Alan Gordon.
Off a header. From a ball from Zardes.
Well, there you go.
Well
Bruce
done.
Arena, there's a reason you're an MLS coach and I'm not.
Exactly. This is why he gets paid more money than we do.
Yes.
All right. Well, our new power rankings are out. They are hip. They are fresh. They are what all the kids are talking about at the local gumball machine. That's not it.
Gumball machine.
I know.
Wow.
I just dated you, didn't I? by saying that.
Penny gumballs or
absolutely.
Are these the quarter machines?
No, well, I mean, when I grew up, they were quarters because, inflation and stuff.
Right. We had the Ford penny. Well, I loved going to the bank with my mom because right in the entrance was the Ford. That was the name on there. It wasn't the Ford car company, but the Ford. And it was the good old classical, see-through bulb. 1 penny, man.
Boom.
Loved it.
I would kill to have. You can go to like an antique store nowadays, I'm sure, and buy those. I might have to do that.
Yeah, but there's something not as special about having it like in your house. It's still cool, but there's something about walking to that bank and seeing those penny.
Absolutely, that was the thing.
Penny gumballs
at the at the grocery stores. Like while you're in the lines, like they usually put the gumball machines like right outside the register. So as a kid, you're in line like, Mom, Dad, gumballs. And you would ask, for like a quarter. Can I please have a quarter? And you always like picked your color, and then you'd get like a white one or a green one. You're like, what the heck?
We had this gumball machine at the Piggly Wiggly we used to go to.
Okay.
It was the gumballs were fruit shaped, but the cool thing was the machine always malfunctioned. So it was a quarter.
Okay.
But we'd always get like 5 or 6 of them.
Nice.
So
you would learn if you went to the same gumball machine enough times, you would learn the tricks of how you could bump it or shake it, like twist the knob just quickly, and you could get like 2 out if you were lucky. Because that one, they never last. They last like 20 seconds, and then they like lost their flavor. But
did we just spend 3 minutes talking about gumballs?
I think we did. That's more promotion than gumballs have gotten in a long time. So you're welcome, Gumball Inc. or whoever runs the gumball world, Mr. Gumball. All right. The new power rankings are out, as you all know, or if you maybe don't know. Simon and I have different power rankings. We don't have a collective 2 Up Front power rankings anymore because we found out throughout the weeks and throughout the months that we sometimes have differing opinions that cause us to scuffle a bit. So we're going to scuffle, but in a controlled atmosphere this time.
That's right.
So
I just had way too many gumballs stolen from you when you get mad at me. So.
Exactly. I steal your marbles, too,
right.
from all that. So our number 5s this week are different as they normally are. So, yeah. Simon, your number 5 is who, sir?
I got DC United.
Okay.
They're a team we actually argued about early on in the season. I thought they were more for real than you did. And I haven't
still not sold.
I haven't been sold until these last 2 games, 3-2 wins over Philly and a 6-4 win over a struggling Real Salt Lake. But when I look at the rest of the teams,
you can still
in the
put
league,
up 6 goals though.
That's right.
Impressive.
And as I said before, 2-9 in the last 2 games.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like for me, I can't deny it anymore. They're back to their winning ways. Scoring a lot of goals, and ultimately, they let in a lot of goals. But what matters is the win column, and they've been winning those games. So,
rightfully so.
Yes, they're number 1 in the East. That's mainly because of the games they've played, right? But that's why I keep them at number 5 and not any higher.
Understandable. Well, my number 5 is the white-hot Vancouver Whitecaps. They're your number 4.
They are.
So we can kind of collectively hash it out here. Vancouver, like we mentioned, they're playing fantastic soccer. They beat Seattle 3-0. They've got a great attack. They're starting to get all their young players hip and ready to roll, and Darren Maddox is scoring goals, and the team is looking like a complete package. And like you said, they lead the Cascadia standings, and they're second overall in the West. So.
Yeah, I wonder if some of their struggles that they had there in July, the 2 losses and the draw, if that mainly had to do with the Gold Cup.
I think so. They had a lot of their young Jamaican and just other players that were gone.
Because before that, they were on a 3-game win streak, and they've as you mentioned, Maddox is back. So that's also why I have them at number 4. I mean, they. Nice strong wins against San Jose. San Jose is not the strongest team, but they are a decent squad.
They are.
And really to put 3 past San Jose is pretty incredible. And then, of course, they shut out the Sounders, which that's not saying much these days.
It's not anymore, no. If you would have said that, even a month ago or so.
Right.
Oh, P.S., Central? Oh. They just scored.
Central FC.
Tie game, 1-1 in the 9th minute.
So maybe I should be an MLS coach.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Ooh,
okay.
I've
I've got Vancouver at number 4. I know they're a team like you like to say you're a closet fan of.
I am.
I like Carl Robinson too as a manager.
I do too.
I really think he knows what he's doing. I'd love to have him out in Portland, to be honest with you.
Get rid of. Maybe you guys can do a trade your coaches.
So you're number 4.
My number 4 is Sporting Kansas City. I think that the club is doing something that, they've only lost 1 game in their last 5 games, but even then they've only lost 2 games. They've only lost 2 games since April 18th, Simon. Only 2 games. 2 games they've lost, 2-1 to RSL, and then 2-1 to RSL.
Yeah, and actually I dropped them out of my rankings. I had them as high as number 3.
Interesting.
Because it mainly has to do with the way they are playing.
Mm-hmm.
They may be threatening, but they're not finishing their shots. July 25th, they lose to a very weak Real Salt Lake team.
Yeah.
They have that draw with Houston. Yes, they were undone. They should have gotten the PK in that game, but they also shouldn't be letting these games stay so close. With the talent that they have, with Dom Dwyer up top, they should be finishing these games in a stronger fashion and getting 3 points more often. And they're not.
Agree.
So it's really, for me, it's like they're not living up to their potential that they have with their talent. So I'm going to actually punish them a little bit more than maybe I would somebody else.
Understandable.
If that makes a Vancouver.
No, I agree. I completely agree. Our number 3s are the same. We have the New York Red Bulls for both of us. The Red Bulls on an unbeaten streak, playing exceptionally well. They've only lost once in their last 7 games, Simon, and that one loss coming against the Columbus Crew.
And that was a Columbus Crew. That was a very strong team.
That was a dangerous Columbus Crew. Yes.
Yeah. Whatever's going on with Columbus, I don't know. But and of course, you got the Sean Wright Phillips and Bradley Wright Phillips connecting. We've talked. We'd probably just rehash a lot of this. What we said before.
Yeah.
But the Red Bulls, I'm still surprised at how well this team is doing. I thought with what was all going on before the season, Mike Petke being fired, Jesse Marsh coming in, the fans being really upset, wasn't quite sure what the players
I wouldn't have been
were going to be like.
They tanked.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have surprised me at all.
But I have to say, I think the players have really bought into Jesse Marsh's system.
Absolutely.
And the Red Bulls, man, they keep churning out wins.
They do.
And, of course, they had a draw yesterday against Montreal, but we both think that Montreal is a stronger team, and that was in Montreal. And they were down 1-0. They came back and tied that one with a Lloyd Sam equalizer. So
who's been playing well?
He has been. He was
your one of our weekly MVP awards that we had earlier in the show.
That's
one of those weeks because he had a fantastic performance. Now, our 2-1 are flip-flopped.
I'm actually surprised by you.
I know. I knew you would be.
Yeah.
I knew you would be. My number 2 is the Galaxy, who is your number 1, and my number 1 is your number 2, who is FC Dallas. I'm finally on the FC Dallas train, at least for the moment.
So it took them to lose for you to get on the FC Dallas train.
Yes. That makes sense, doesn't it? Their 5-game win streak and then a loss, obviously, it really spoke volumes. I went back. I did a little bit more research. I dug into what FC Dallas is and how they've performed over the last 10 games. And I've been more impressed by them. Obviously, the Galaxy, they've done a fantastic job also. But the 2 losses in recent times have definitely been a little difficult for me to swallow.
I understand. Sure. Sure.
But overall, though, if I could share a first position, I would give it to both of them. But
right,
FC Dallas gets my first spot. LA gets my second spot.
I keep LA at number 1, and it may be surprising to some people that I also kept FC Dallas at number 2, that I didn't drop them.
Yes.
So I'll kind of speak about both of them real quick. For me, FC Dallas. They did have that 2-1 win. Oh, I'm sorry. That was an old note. I apologize for that.
Happens.
They lost to Chicago 2-0. I did watch that game. I will say that just didn't look like FC Dallas to me. There was something real funky. That team was slow. They started out really strong. But I think it's a blip on the radar for them.
I do too.
So that's the same argument I have with LA Galaxy. Man, you throw Dos Santos in there now, I think
it's going to be scary.
This team has the potential to be the first MLS super club. I mean, they're heading that way. I don't know if that's good for the league or bad for the league, but they're heading that way with the players they're able to sign.
I'm fine with it. I don't know. I don't mind the Galaxy.
And as far as the Houston loss, the LA's loss to Houston, we both spoke about that game.
Yep.
This was 2 weeks ago where we both said we're taking LA, but Houston seems to be that team that has LA's number.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking at that with a grain of salt as well, which
Absolutely.
is why I keep LA at number 1.
Well, rightfully so. Well, a quick recap. Simon's top 5, he's got DC United, Vancouver, the Red Bulls, FC Dallas, and LA. My top 5, Vancouver, Sporting, Kansas City, Red Bulls, Galaxy, FC Dallas. Let us know your thoughts. Tweet at us at 2UpFrontSoccer, at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan. We're going to go to a break, our last break. When we come back, we'll throw out our I Believe segments and wrap things up. This is 2 Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
Welcome back inside the studio. For those of you checking us out on Periscope, appreciate it. You can go follow us on Periscope at Two Up Front Soccer. We appreciate you watching. You get an inside look to what happens in the studio while we're talking, while we're doing the show. Always a good time. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to comment on the video as well while we're going along. Simon Provan and Baxter Colburn here chatting. We have our I Believe segment, Simon.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
AKA have something fill the radio noise while Baxter takes a drink because he's very thirsty, but it still helps. No, it's not what it's actually called. But for those of you that don't know, our I Believe segment is the part of the show where Simon and I both offer I Believe statements about something in the soccer world. So as an example, I believe that Sepp Blatter will be fired as the FIFA president. For example, I wish. That's a wish.
That would be good. He has technically resigned, but
is he though?
Is he? Yeah.
Well, okay. I never asked you. Did you see what the comedian did when he threw all?
Yes,
those?
I
did. Oh my gosh,
that was fantastic.
Fantastic. I applauded that guy, whoever he is. Well done, sir. Well done.
He's a comedian, I believe, from England or something of that nature.
Absolutely. Well, Simon, would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
Why don't you go first this week, since I went first in the 50-50 segment?
Fair enough. All right. Well, my I Believe segment this week is that I believe that a MLS team will make it to the CONCACAF Champions League final this year again. I think that between LA trying to, like we had mentioned the last time, it might be that super club, I guess. Mm-hmm. I think that LA has a very good chance to make it to the final this year. I'm not saying that they will be that one, but I think that with the teams that are representing Major League Soccer, that there will be another team in the final this year.
Well, you stole my thunder a little bit there. I should go first next time. No, that's okay. It wasn't about the final. Mine's just not going to be as impressive as yours. So the teams we have in MLS that are in the CONCACAF Champions League are DC United, Real Salt Lake, who did win their first game. You got the Sounders and Vancouver in the same group. And then you also have LA Galaxy.
Where's Montreal?
Well, Montreal didn't qualify because they didn't win the Canadian Championship.
Bummer.
Yeah. But so my belief is that it's kind of a few of them put together. That LA will advance. I believe Vancouver will advance. I believe Real Salt Lake will advance. But I think DC United is going to be upset and not advance.
Interesting.
I don't know why. No, I do. I think Aruba Unido is going to surprise a few people. They did win their first game against Montego Bay United. But Montego Bay has traditionally been in the tournament but hasn't done well. I don't think DC's ready for this tournament.
Well, you keep an eye on that, and if it does happen, we will definitely be talking about it here on Two Up Front. Another exciting edition of Two Up Front presented by Sports Radio America. We had a lot of fun things to chat about today. Remember, you can listen to us on Fridays from 3 to 6 Eastern on Sports Radio America, live 365, and tune in. Listen to us on demand anytime you want on iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, and on iTunes as well. Before we head off, Simon Provan, final thoughts from you, sir.
Yeah, not really much that we've talked about on the show, but Timmy Chandler, playing for Frankfurt there in Germany, his coach is critical of him joining the U.S. men's national team. He understands he wants to play there, but he'd rather stay with the club. I couldn't agree more.
Well, if you're Jurgen Klinsmann, Timmy Chandler is the best German player on the squad, so we'll see what happens. Well, there might be a falling out between Klinsmann and the Frankfurter.
Yeah, my German is
Frankfurt.
My German is probably as bad as my Spanish.
I don't know. Well, we'll see. But like we said, if it happens in the soccer world, Simon and I will be talking about it for all of you listening on Sports Radio America. Huge thank you to you. Remember, check us out on social media at 2 Up Front Soccer on Twitter and 2 Up Front on Facebook, at Simon Provan, at Baxter Colburn. Let us know your thoughts about anything we talk about. Love hearing from you. Enjoy your week. Enjoy your weekend. A lot of exciting EPL and MLS action coming your way. He's Simon Provan. I'm Baxter Colburn, with our manager being the one above. We are 2 Up Front.